All right, good afternoon. Hopefully everybody can hear me. We're going to wait a few minutes to get the video started and get a few people in the door. So the big topic right now is going to be the Hurricane Ian, at least that's what I call it. It touched up in Florida and appears to be traveling up the East Coast. And, you know, in a lot of work that I do, since I own a company and I own Section 8 Consulting.com, work with a lot of clients, including in Florida. And so we've lost contact with about half of roughly 28 clients in the state of Florida because flooding, surging, and other weather. And I believe that there's around 2 million people throughout Central Florida that may be without power. So I do feel immensely bad about that, not being able to speak with those particular clients. So as a few introductions, as we get started, I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. We work with clients every year up to 700 to 1,000 a year, and we focus primarily on Section 8, affordable housing, and so on. And right now, I guess kind of the point of the conversation is because of this hurricane, it's causing an immense amount of problems throughout parts of the state of Florida. And of course, the massive power outages. And so we've lost contact with many housing authorities that we would normally be able to speak to on behalf of clients. And I've lost contact with roughly half of 28 clients. Now, I don't imagine anything's too badly in peril, but I know that it's pretty serious when you get, hurricanes is not so much about the wind blowing, born in Louisiana and spent the other half of my life in Houston. I've been hit probably by 7 or 8 Cat 5s. It's always the water and the lack of power that make the situation rather severe. Because once that hurricane, it only takes about 4 hours from the edge of a hurricane to the center and another 4 hours before it moves over you. But I do have a lot of concern because what this is going to cause in certain parts of Florida is a severe housing shortage. A lot of people may have damaged homes and other things, and those that are already on the fundamental edge of possibly losing their housing or potentially being homeless, this is going to impact it severely. And so I have a great amount of concern for those folks. So if you are a client of our company, please do reach out to us the minute you get your phone's charged or there's a cell tower and so on. Let us know that you're okay. As an added note, I just want to let you guys know that those that reside in Florida and potentially up the East Coast will take priority over all of the clients right now, simply because I need to be able to speak to them and see what's going on. And if there's an urgency for housing. Now, one thing I want to mention is in the description of this video, I have included some links, and I did a bit of research this morning to connect some of you guys that have been impacted by this hurricane on the East Coast with FEMA and Red Cross. As many of you know, a federal declaration or emergency declared in any county or state will bring out FEMA and it will bring out the Red Cross. And of course, they have the gift cards, hotel vouchers. But there's one unique thing that does happen by virtue of a national declaration, especially over counties and states. If you're already in a tough situation and you've been looking for housing, this could be the very moment that yields itself for you. Because if you go down to some of the service stations that are done by FEMA and the Red Cross, they will have assessment workers there. And because if you're part of that disaster, then they can be forced into pretty much having to house you above and beyond anybody else. In other words, you might have been on a waiting list in Tampa, Florida for 28 years. And by virtue of this storm and you going out to either one of their hub stations where they're servicing, giving out water, food, whatever, they may be forced to house you and expedite those vouchers. As you'll know, many times I've told you in the past, housing authorities, regardless of them having vouchers or not, or saying they do or not, they always keep a reserve. And this is for this specific type of reason. And the federal government has the right to override any housing authority in America, period. They don't give a damn if the housing authority is closed. They don't care if the housing authority people want to work or whatever. If the government says that they're going to need to issue vouchers and get people off the street in lieu of a natural disaster like this, then it's an ideal time to get out there, as miserable as it may be, in order to take advantage of that particular situation if you're truly affected by it, okay? As an example, back in 2017, the city of Houston was nailed really hard. Now, clearly, Galveston, which is by the Gulf, was hit by wind and surge. But the big factor that remains was the city of Houston remained underwater for nearly a month. It caused a lot of people to have to live in a lot of our stadiums and different things because they couldn't live in homes that were 15 foot underwater. So the city was pretty much divided and flooded. Everybody that was staying on cots that had to do with FEMA and Red Cross, they could not tell people to get out the building until they housed them. So do you see the example that I'm making here? Now, I'm not suggesting they're going to give out free Section 811 vouchers or mainstream vouchers. Maybe, maybe not. But in a lot of cases, they will try to put you through coordinated entry and will try to give you an emergency housing voucher. And it's probably the easiest way to do it because you're not seeking a voucher under the pretense of a referral from a district attorney's office because of domestic violence. This actually rides higher than that. You're not attempting to do this because your mental or physical health is being addressed by a county agency, and you're being referred to, of course, the HA, which is a county organization. This is a federal. This would be considered a federal referral, and it's by force mandate. So those of you that are affected could potentially force them into an EHV or emergency housing voucher. As the other thing I should mention that early on, talking about the storm. Now, I just want to make it clear that, this is inclusion of storm and also vouchers and housing, because that's the real issue here for a lot of clients, is going to be the fact that on October 1st, the United States government is now going to be issuing over 20,000 vouchers. I mentioned that in prior videos. And for those of you that are disabled, that are young, that are old, that are struggling for a wide variety of reasons, or even on fixed income, this would be an ideal time to address this, whether you're in the state of Florida or not. Also, I would imagine that there's a lot of affected states are going to be affected because as of now, it seems to have bounced off Florida. It's now rolling up the East Coast. So we're seeing probably some flooding and storming throughout Georgia, South Carolina going on up. So we'll see what the effect will be. So, there's a whole lot going on. Another thing I should mention, I think that a lot of people that are already members of the channel are very familiar with the course that the things that I educate people on in regards to housing is simply this. In 2023, we get to January 1st, which isn't that far away, 90 days, we're going to get higher rents, okay? So finally, HUD, after, eons and decades or so on, have decided they're actually going to match the course of the pandemic. They're going to match the course of inflation, and they will potentially do two things. One, they're going to allow landlords to be able to ask for more rent, but they're also going to be giving out vouchers worth a lot more to match these crazy rents. And I think what they're going to be issuing, we're going to see that October 1st as well. And that's going to be good for a lot of people. So if you've had a voucher, you're already vouchered, you already have a place to go, and you're struggling with that voucher, not paying enough of that rent, and that landlord just keeps bumping it up every 6 months, now would be an ideal time to think about when October and, of course, January 1st hits to address rent reasonableness, how much that voucher you have is currently worth, and getting reevaluated to match the actual market. So that would be standard fair market rates, and that's for the big cities, million plus. Now, for those of you who don't live in the big metropolitan areas, you'll be looking at SAM pairs or SAF SAM pairs. I'm sorry, I forget the acronym. small area, medium market rents. And so that will help you kind of guide you on being able to get a rent adjustment on the voucher for those of you that require that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up some information as far as our company for those of you that are struggling with housing and so on. You'd be able to, if your best efforts have not yielded a very good result, you're tired of struggling with it, and you would like some assistance or at least professional advice, I'd say reach out to us. I believe in principle that most people are finally educated and would be able to handle their own housing crisis and issues. However, sometimes we have clients that, it's a tough system, and it's tough to get through. It's tough to get anything quickly. Sometimes, when your car's broke, you call a mechanic. In this situation, it doesn't hurt to take the advice of an independent company that's been in practice for a long time. So with that, I'm going to put up a link real quick. So beyond that, I was going to say that we will, through this week, be servicing clients primarily up and down the East Coast that have been struggling with the storm or whatever's going to happen, especially those that have been affected in Florida. And we should also bear in mind that those of you that I'm working on your cases inside of the state of Florida, If there's power loss, if there are other issues, our housing authorities have been closed and flooded, and I can think of you already, then there's nothing that can be done. If we're under contractual agreement, then I will just simply extend the time as a courtesy to those persons, because we can't do anything if the housing authority is underwater. In fact, it would just be a dizzying waste of time calling probably housing authorities anywhere in Central Florida at this point, because it's chaos. Even the people that work at housing authorities are affected. So what I'm saying is, a lot of you that are in Florida, your cases will be paused. However, we will accept your calls and continue to work with you any way we can, especially guide you into FEMA and Red Cross resources, and let the good government help you. That's one of the privileges and honors of being an American and working here in America, is that when you need something, occasionally the government does come through. And so I would especially tell you to drop your pride and ask for the help, because I don't think anybody wants to carry the burden or the cost of what a natural disaster can do to you financially and otherwise, unless your pride's just too big. Now, that being said, guys, I'm open to questions, comments, or even if you feel like you need to harass me and you don't like me, it's okay. My feelings will not be destroyed. I always get extremists in the channel, and I'm quite used to that. They're amusing. It's kind of like going to a child's party where you have a little party clown there that honks his nose and wears big shoes. Thankfully, today it looks like most people are well behaved in the chat, so I'm very pleased with that. So beyond that, I'm looking forward to making a video this Sunday. It's going to be a live Q&A for those of you that have questions about Section 8 housing, Section 811, Section 504, questions about your disabilities, questions about being a senior, subsidized housing, low housing, affordable housing, and anything in lieu of that, including issues related to your landlord, issues related to issues dealing with your HA or housing authority. Now, keep in mind, I don't deal direct with HUD, because HUD is... Let's talk about an explanation of HUD and how it yields differently than FEMA and the Red Cross. HUD is the agency that receives all the monies from Congress and the president. They disperse that money to every state. The state disperses that money to the housing authorities, each county. Your local housing authority is not HUD. They have no connection. When the housing authority acts badly, then we take the issue up with HUD, which are the feds, okay? So I really wish you guys would quit comparing HUD and the local housing authorities being the same thing. They're not. They're quite adversarial. In fact, HUD sued over 300 agencies this year. And as many of you know, there's close to 5,800 housing authorities in one form or another. As another matter of practice, I tell you, there's many, many types of housing and many, many types of vouchers out there open for those that are struggling with housing, whether by virtue of storm, natural disaster, whether you plan poorly for retirement, or maybe you're disabled. You have no legs, no arms, who knows? Or maybe you have a mental health crisis and it's preventing you from operating normally or keeping a job. There are all types of vouchers available to people that sincerely need that, whether you're extremely old and so on. One of the things to tell you about is, besides the housing authority, there's also continuum of care agencies, and that agency will handles vouchers for people that need rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, folks that can utilize a emergency housing voucher, and also I think they have Shelter Plus. I would recommend, clearly, out of all those options, that you would consider permanent supportive housing or EHP, because they're better vouchers and they're good for life. And some of them actually come with portability. If you're 62 and older, I would say Section 202. So that'd be subsection of Code of Federal Regulation is funding your voucher under 202 in the premise of that law. And that's for seniors that are disabled. And those of you that are 18 to 61, you have mainstream vouchers. You have Section 811, which is subsection 811 of Code of Federal Regulation that addresses those individuals that are disabled but not a senior, okay? And there are many different other varieties. For instance, VAWA for those that have that's actually a law. It's a law or code, but it's written in principle for those of you that have experienced domestic violence from a person that you're intimate with or in love with. It can't be a friend, a family, or neighbor, okay? Or those of you that may have been suffering from HIV or other issues related to that, AIDS. They have HAPA, of course, the wine right. So there's a lot of different things that are open to you. And to dispel a few rumors real quick, it does not matter if you particularly have a criminal record, as long as you're not an SO, a sex offender. And the other thing is, if you've not been convicted of some form of methamphetamine use, then generally you can work with it. As an example, I had a gentleman that robbed up to 12 banks, was released from a federal prison. And I can assure you, as a day is long, within 90 days, he had housing. Okay. So if our company can manage that, I don't see a problem with managing anybody else's cases. Okay. Homelessness. That's a big issue in the nation. The pandemic has produced more homeless people than any other era that I can think of, except wartime. And I think we've had a very good record there. And that brings up one other nice question. Well, not question, but thing I'd love to tell you guys. I have been complaining now for 3 years about the city of Los Angeles and Orange, because that has been the epicenter of a housing shortage. You create inflation, and then you let a bunch of rich people buy up all the houses all over California. All these rich people buy them, and they're just empty, right? And they keep extracting these houses from the market, creating a crunch. And then, of course, the inflation. And then, of course, the interest rate. So how does that affect a person's low income that needs a voucher? Well, here's what it does. It condenses the market, and it makes it widely unavailable. And then you take agencies or the HA like LASHA or the Los Angeles Housing Authority that really has never had a voucher to give for years now. Guess what they're doing? They're opening up, and they're fixing to give away vouchers. So this is an opportune time. If you think twice, you blink twice. In LA, you don't get jack. And as an example of that, anybody's welcome to drive down Skid Row. There's a perfectly good reason why nothing ever gets done in that city. That's why we have avoided cases primarily in that city. And I think we have probably utilized portability to move a vast number of people out of the city of Los Angeles and Orange County, because it's just too big of a nightmare trying to even deal with housing or get them a voucher there. However, I believe there's a second opportunity that will yield itself starting in October. And you better be in line. It'll be just like the situation in the city of Miami. When they opened, there were 90,000 applicants. That's 1/4 of the city's population. They had 5,000 vouchers to give to 90,000. You see the problem with that? It was chaos. Well, guys, I'm glad y'all all enjoyed me. I know this is a blended mix of concern for those of you that were dealing possibly with Hurricane Ian. Again, we yielded some results and linkage to FEMA and the Red Cross. And I encourage you to not let your pride get over you. If you've been in that storm, then you need to be calling these people. And as I'd mentioned, being in that storm does give you the right to call them. And by virtue, as I'd mentioned before, that if you talk with FEMA or Red Cross while in a city affected by that storm that's under a national declaration, okay, of destruction or otherwise, then you going and signing up out there can, in most cases, compel them to have to give you an EHV, emergency housing voucher, provided you have the right things in place, okay? It's a skilled game. The federal agencies, again, as I had mentioned, that is the highest form of referral you'll ever get. They can compel the housing authority to give vouchers, even if they don't want to do it. You'll never see easier terms in which to get them. This is the top of the line. So I always tell you, when the hurricanes, volcanoes, whatever blows up, whatever blows by, if you're in the city where it happens, if you don't use the federal agencies and sign up for housing during that, you'd be foolish, okay? Now, there are some caveats. Of course, you give them the wrong answers, you might just not get what you need. But I can't think of an easier way. Earlier in the video, I gave you a great example of the city of Houston. They were forced to house people that knew damn well didn't even need it. But because that's how the feds are, they couldn't to get the stadium empty. They literally had to house everybody, regardless, knowing half the cases were just bullshit. But that was the only way to get rid of everybody, because they were under a federal mandate. You see the point? So sometimes you can just force the situation. So I'm not telling anybody to take advantage of this situation. I'm just suggesting that if you really have been affected, that it would be a wise move to do it now. Beyond that, guys, I'm going to wrap this up if y'all have no further questions. And again, I'm going to be seeing you in about 2 days. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these big changes, including the 20,000 vouchers rolling out starting October 1st. Also, reevaluating those of you that already have a voucher and housing, reevaluating rents to get a higher payment standard. That will all be rolled out in the 1st of January. And for those of you that live in nightmarish LA, and those vouchers will, let me tell you something, that agency's fixing to open, HA. And when it opens, If you don't get that application in, that would be the most foolish move you ever made in your life. I don't care what you think your problems are. You better get out there and get that done. In fact, if there are 5 adults in your family, then all 5 need to apply independently. And not only should you do that, you should be applying in every surrounding county connected to LA. Look, never put one egg in one basket. You're only yielding one result if it yields a result. And then if you're only dealing with them when they say no, then what was the point? You just wasted a magnificent amount of your time achieving nothing. You should be considering several factors in place. One, are we applying at every housing authority in the area? Are we applying for every subsidy? And have we even considered COC housing or housing first? If you guys are one note, one payment, or one check away from being put out your apartment or your home, there are other places to get vouchers. If you don't know where they are, contact my office. The news is a bad example of teaching people not enough. You see my point? Everybody's been trained and raised since 60s and 80s that there's only one way to get a voucher. No, there's not. Oh, there's only one type of voucher. No, there's not. And so that's the point of education. The sooner you guys learn to weaponize your cases and be able to use the resources there and quit letting those housing authority employees get on the phone with you and talk to you like you're a $2 hooker on 3rd Street. And if anybody disagrees with that comment or finds it offensive, call your local housing authority and see if they're going to stop by your house and do a prayer circle. See whether or not they talk to you intelligibly or like you're stupid. If you don't believe me, call your local housing authority, start asking them questions, start asking them to educate you, and see how well that goes for you. Any of them. I can only think of about 15%, maybe less than 15% of the housing authority where they actually train people to be respectful. Okay? It's strange, isn't it? Because you call other federal agencies, you get treated with respect. You call Social Security Administration, Medicare, or you call the housing authority the biggest offender. Those folks there, they don't care. They talk to you any old way. Trust me, I do it for a living, done it for 21 years. They talk to me like trash too. But as I always mention, guys, again, the things that I'm discussing, even our company, sectionandconsulting.com, you don't have to pay anybody to do anything. I'm not here to sell anything or shake the loose change out of your purse. You can always call HUD. They have specialists there. They'll give you 3-4 minutes of their time. You can call your local housing authority. They'll give you at least 2 minutes before they giggle and hang up on you. And then, of course, you can call the experts at 211 and 311. These are people that will get on Google, look up a phone number that may or may not work and give it to you, and they call that casework. So there's lots of fantastic free options, or you can go down to church, see if they pray for you. Pray a voucher into your pocket. I got nothing against the church, okay? But God wants you to be smart about how you do this. And if you're going to sit here and you're going to deal with housing and play a rigged game, then you better play to win. Because of this shit going up there with a sob story, the housing authority people don't care about your sob story. They don't care if you don't have legs or eyeballs. The only thing they care about is whether or not your answers match what they're looking to give a voucher for. They do not care if you're living in the ditch. And the easiest way for you to figure out whether I'm lying in this video is for you just give them a ring real quick and ask them. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you, and I hope to have a little bit of fun with y'all on our live Sunday, because that way we can answer a whole lot of questions. Lori D, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize a few people that have popped in the channel. I know I'm doing a midday. Shirley Griffin, thanks for popping in. And Shirley says that, hey, Jay, Florida's in trouble, no housing. Yep, that is true. Shirley Griffin goes on to say, Jay keeps us updated, and then woohoo. Lori D, our FMR is going from 888 one bedroom to 1375. Well, that's a pretty big move. It looks like about a quarter, 25% bump there. Lori D goes on to say, thanks for all you've done and share. Well, I try, and I've been trying now for 10 years on YouTube. And for those that don't know it, I made over 600 videos. You know how offensive it is to sit on a channel for free for 10 years, make 600 videos, and then somebody tell you, oh, by the way, I think it's horrifying that you would charge anybody $1. You should come live under the bridge with me, collect some welfare, and then don't charge nobody. You see how crazy that is? 10 years of making free videos to educate people to go out and do this stuff, and people get mad when I actually have to be able to pay my own light bill. That they're recommending that I quit my job, move under a bridge, and that our company should let everybody go, and that we just maybe go down and get a voucher. I can go get a voucher myself and live under the bridge and yield services that way. That I tell the phone company and electric company that I'm not willing to pay, that I'll just use a can and a string and provide services by screaming across the lawn because I don't have a phone. I had some ignorant bastard come to the channel and say that, and looking at somebody that's helped now almost 18,000 people over 20 years, and have somebody come to the channel and say something that stupid. They need a welfare check, then they need a voucher, they need a food stamp card, and they're sitting up in that house not doing jack. Now, let me tell you something. I work with lots of clients that have real disabilities, deserve this. I work with seniors, worked all their life, and just didn't make enough and are struggling with retirement. I also work with mothers that have children that are severely disabled and can't get housing. There's lots of great reasons which persons absolutely should utilize the system. Then I get these extremists in my channel, they come in here and they wander around YouTube like a bunch of assholes, and then they make these little comments. It drives me absolutely wild. And if y'all learn anything about me over the years making these videos, I'm not going to sugarcoat shit. Nothing in this world you get for free is worth a damn, except for ketchup at McDonald's and the air you breathe. That's it. As a matter of fact, somebody offered something free to me, I'd be leery about that for sure. This is Live 85. How do you port a voucher find a place that is lower in mole? Lease in South Florida ends in January. Well, portability, presuming you have a voucher, portability the easiest way to establish that is one, giving your HA or your housing authority a call, see if they have a portability specialist there. If your housing authority is large enough, it'll have a portability specialist. They'll initiate portability. They'll require you to give a 30-day notice on your lease that you're leaving amicably under your HAP contract, and then they will contact the forwarding housing authority, meaning in the next county or state if you intend on moving to a different area, and then they will initiate and request whether or not they're going to be doing billing or absorbing. That's either where the housing authority you're currently at will either cut a check every month for you to be in a different state or county, or they will absorb you into forwarding. When you get to where you're going, they'll say, go ahead and give back your old housing authority. It's a voucher. We're going to cut you a brand new one. We're not going to send the bill. Okay. So, it's not super complex at the time. And I would definitely I would plan for about 30 to 60 days of time to get all the way through it. And Lori D goes on to comment, sense isn't so common. You're sure right about that. It doesn't grow on flowers, but people will always be people. And, it's good stimulation because I love trolls as well as I do good clients. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to wish y'all good. And my heart goes out to those of you affected by Hurricane Ian. If you've been affected that way or you're also a client, and please reach me any way you can. Go down to the McDonald's, any place you can find some power. Get on the phone, let us know that you're doing okay. If we don't hear from you, then we will try everything we can. I'm office managers to reach out and see what we can do for you. If you're already housed and have a voucher and living somewhere and your place is soaked or you're in trouble, please do call our office, okay? That way we can look at our asset and see what we can do and reach out to the feds, reach out to FEMA and the Red Cross, and try to handle as much as we can for you, okay? All right, guys, I've enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope you'll have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.